Hi, welcome to geometry. Today we're going to start with some basic geometric terms. The first term is point. A point is an undefined term in geometry. It is represented with a dot and has no size. It's named with a capital letter, like this guy, point A. Number 2, this is a line. A line is another undefined term in geometry that goes on forever in two directions and has no thickness. In the diagram, we've got line M. We can also call it line AB or line BA. So this is line M or AB with a line on top or BA with a line on top. These are the options. Number 3, another undefined term in geometry that goes on forever in all directions and has no thickness is a plane. It's represented with a flat surface and named with 3 points or a script capital letter. So we can name this one several different ways. One way would be to name it plane MNO, or and it might be a little hard to see, but this is in cursive. We can just call this plane R. Number 4, a line that is perpendicular to a segment at its midpoint is a perpendicular bisector. So in this diagram, we see that the right angle is identifying it as being perpendicular. Perpendicular means it intersects at a right angle. It must show this, or it must state that it's a right angle. And so the bisector here is line T for segment AB. Number 5, that's a bisector. So the difference here is that it doesn't have to be perpendicular. We can see the same diagram as in the previous, or you could have two segments like this. And so let me go ahead and call this AB, and then we can call this line M, and we can see it's bisecting segment AB. So each of these sections is congruent, and we'll show congruent meaning the same with these little hash marks, but it is definitely not a right angle. This angle in here looks a lot less than 90. Number 6, the degree of steepness of a line. You learned this in Algebra 1. This is the slope, and that's determined by the change in the vertical distance divided by the change in the horizontal distance. It is always rise over run. So we're rising 3, we're running 4. So that's why the slope is 3 over 4. Number 7, something that describes segments that have the same measure. Those are congruent segments. The same measure. So in this example, we have segment CD, that is 7 units, is congruent to segment AB, that is also 7 units. This little symbol right here means congruent. It's an equal sign with a little squiggly on top. So we're showing that AB is congruent to CD. In number 8, we have two lines that intersect to form a right angle. Okay, the right angle is showing we're perpendicular, and two lines, these are just perpendicular lines. And we will write this with M perpendicular to L. Number 9, a portion of a line from one endpoint to another. And the difference here is that these are endpoints. This is a segment. And we can identify this as AB or BA. Notice the top of the points AB, that is just a little segment, as opposed to in number 2, those were had little arrows on the endpoints. You've got to identify the difference. All right, let's continue. Number 10, the absolute value of the difference of the coordinates for any 2 points on a number line. This is the distance. Distance is an absolute value. So if we're looking for the distance from A to C, we start with the coordinate for A, which is -2. Difference means to subtract. So -2 minus 3, and it's the absolute value. So -2 minus 3 is the absolute value of -5, which is 5. Remember, absolute value is always a positive. Number 11, points that lie on the same line. If we are same line, we are collinear. And you know what? I made a mistake here. It's all one word. Collinear. So points A, B, and C are collinear because they are on the same line. Number 12, if points do not lie on the same line, then they are non-collinear. And in this case, you've got to have 3 points. 2 points are always going to be collinear. But here, 3 or more, non-collinear. So in this case, point W is way over here off to the side. It is not on the same lines as W, X, and Y, or W, X, and Z. So these 3 points would not be collinear. Number 13, a point that divides a segment into 2 congruent segments is a midpoint. If you have 2 segments and the point that divides it exactly in segments means we have 2 congruent segments, and that is the midpoint. Number 14, points or lines all in one plane, coplanar. These are points or lines that are all in the same plane. In our little diagram here, we have points A, B, C, and D. If you can imagine this A, B, C, and D, like the top of this box, as one plane, those are all on the same plane. If we take the front plane, A, D, H, and G, if we take the end plane, D, E, C, and G, those are coplanar points. Now we can also talk about lines being coplanar. So if we're looking at this top plane, this yellow one, we could say line AB and line CD are coplanar. Line AD and line BC are also coplanar. Number 15, non-coplanar are points or lines that are not in the same plane. So in our diagram, we've got points R, S, T, and V are non-coplanar. So let's take a look at those. Points R, S, T happen to be on the same plane at the top, but then we have point V, which is in this bottom corner over here. It is not coplanar with those other 3. Now we could say that V, S, and T are coplanar. They could be on that back plane, or the back of the box. Number 16, these are skew lines, lines that are not coplanar and do not intersect. Skew lines. And so line LM and line RO, if I were to continue line RO and line LM, can you see that these are not ever going to intersect or lie on the same plane? 17, 2 coplanar lines that do not intersect. These are parallel lines. Lines X and Y are parallel lines. These are lines that are never going to intersect. 2 more. Number 18, it says a half line. A half line that starts at one point and goes on forever in one direction. This is a ray. You can name it using its endpoint and one other point. So we can call this ray x, y, and we'll notate it with a little arrow at the top. So it's starting at x and it's going in the direction of y. If you reverse the letters, then you will not be talking about this specific ray. Ray yx is not the same as ray xy. And the last definition, the set of all points, that is space. And there's really not a diagram for that. All right, we've got a study. Let's learn these vocabulary.